Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audio download and a free 30-day trial at www.audibletrial.com/heroes, villains, and sidekicks. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Hey, I'm a longtime listener to the podcast. Big Arrow fan, and I just wanted to see if you could maybe do an episode on Wild Dog. Thanks.
Well, you heard the man. Episode 30, Wild Dog. Well, that was fun. The first message through to the message area on the site. Now, if you notice, I sort of redid the site. There's a few little hiccups here and there that I need to work on in some of the older posts, but I'm working on those. But yeah, new site, a little bit of a redesign. And then right there on the upper area of the site, the top of the fold as they call it, on the right-hand side, there's a little microphone and a message area. All you got to do is click on that. You will hit the record button, and you can leave a message on who you'd like to hear on the show. I really love to be able to play more of these. You go over there, it takes 2 seconds, click on it, bang, there it is. And here's another thing that takes 2 seconds. Head over to iTunes and leave a review. I want to get some more reviews on there so it can help us move up the ranks and let people know about the site. I know it's hard. When I'm listening to podcasts, I'm either driving, doing the laundry, folding the laundry, or putting the laundry away. But if you get a second, it would be great. I'd really appreciate it. Just head over to iTunes and leave a review. So let's get into it. Who is Wild Dog? Well, Wild Dog, the camo-wearing hockey mask vigilante, was created by Allan Collins and Terry Beatty back in 1987 for DC Comics. Now, Wild Dog first appeared in a 4-issue miniseries named after the character, and after that initial run, he turned up in Action Comics Weekly when that title became sort of an anthology. You know, it would have people in it like Deadman, Phantom Girl, The Demon, and he was in it as well. And he actually then went back and he had his own sort of one-shot special called Wild Dog Caged in 1989. And after that, the character was really not seen for some time, really until this year. And I could be wrong, maybe he popped up here and there, but in my research, it seems like he was around during Action Comics, and then he sort of fell off the map. If you know if he's been anywhere since then, go ahead and leave a comment over on the site. And again, of course, if you head over to heroes, villains, and sidekicks.com, you're going to see a bunch of photos from the CW show that he's on. We're going to get into that in a minute. And of course, some images from his first appearance pages and other pages. So again, like I said, he really hasn't come back until this year. And now it seems he is everywhere. From the, like I mentioned, the awesome CW show Arrow to a supporting role in the new Young Animals title, Cave Carson Has a Cybernetic Eye, which is one of my favorite Young Animals titles. And we're actually going to be doing an episode on Cave Carson soon. I'm working on that not as we speak, because I'm actually speaking. I can't be working on it as we speak. But when I turn the microphone off, I will be working on it some more. Okay, enough rambling. Who is Wild Dog? Jack Weller, a.k.a. Wild Dog, he was just a regular guy, and he went to college, and he was actually on a football scholarship, and he was a really great athlete, but he suffered an injury which derailed his football career. Now, not really wanting to stay in college without being able to play football, Jack dropped out and enlisted into the Marines. Unfortunately, his time in the Marines does not go well, where he suffers an extraordinary loss. They're fighting, and he is not with his men directly, and they are killed by a terrorist attack. His entire squad is killed. And this just totally devastates Jack. And after leaving the Marines, he tries to get back into his normal life, and he enrolls at a local college in his hometown in the Quad Cities. There he meets a wonderful woman named Claire and falls in love. But soon after they start to date, Claire is beset by some strange accidents, like almost being hit by a car, something heavy falling on her from way up high, all kinds of wacky stuff. And as you may have guessed, these are not accidents, and she is actually shot eventually and killed right in front of Jake while the two of them are on a date. So this guy has seen a lot of horrible things, and he's had a lot of loss, and that sort of is the thing that starts really feeding this anger, this thing, that makes him be Wild Dog. Now, trying to make sense of what happened to him, Jack, he actually gets some answers from Claire's lawyer when he is called in to hear the reading of her will. Now, there he learns not only did he inherit all her money, which is a sizable amount, he's set for life pretty much, he also learns that Claire is actually not who she seems to be. Jack learns she was using a fake last name, and her real last name was Carmody, the last name of the head mafia family in the Quad Cities. So Jack surmises that Claire was trying to get out her family's shadow in their criminal ways, and she was killed for it, which is what happened. Now, Jack is stunned and angry. He is extremely angry at the death of the woman he loved, and he goes to one of his childhood friends to talk it out. Now, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, it all depends, his friend sort of makes an offhand comment that, Jack should use his newfound inheritance to fight the mob. Well, Jack takes this advice quite literally. He didn't, maybe run for office or enact, do some kind of thing with marketing or who knows what. He decided, like most people do in these comics, to fight crime. So he goes all Bruce Wayne and he uses the money to buy a garage where he, keeps all his gear and he's got his sort of a lair, and he also, works on cars. So it's a front for his wild dog activity. And of course, his wild dog gear. Now, what is his gear? Now, it's a fairly standard vigilante stuff, really ad hoc thrown together, but it's a bit of, it's a bit of each part of him, and it's got a bit of a flair to it. Now, Jack designed his own costume, and it consists of a pair of camo pants, combat boots, and a local college football jersey that sports a snarling red, dog that looks crazy. And to top it all off, he has a hockey goaltender mask to hide his identity, a la Jason Voorhees. Now, to give him a little more help, his uniform is concealing some pretty thin and sophisticated body armor. This allows the wild dogs to just charge in and shoot away and not worried about getting shot up and, being killed by bullets. Don't get me wrong, he's not bulletproof, but he can take a few slugs before, he's going to be going down. Now, it's nothing fancy, but I got to say, I really like his outfit. There's something about that blue jersey with the red dog, funny looking dog, this hockey mask. I just get a kick out of it. I mean, it's kind of thrown together. It's kind of haphazard. And I think it makes him also look a little crazy, which I think is also his intention. I mean, Batman dresses like a bat and is concealed in darkness to scare people. And Watchdog kind of went a different way with it. He just looks crazy. And that would scare the crap out of me. Especially because he's also equipped with these electrifying shock gloves. And I'm going to say this gun name wrong, Jotomatic CG95 PDW machine gun, which is a very badass looking machine that kicks out a lot of bullets a second. Okay, now a quick message from our sponsor. For you, the listeners of the Hero, Villains, and Sidekicks show, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out what they have to offer. Now, personally, I've told you before what I've been doing. I've been reading, right? I've been listening to a lot of old sci-fi, and I'm making my way through the Foundation series. So, again, you don't have to get new books. You can get these old books and listen to them on your drive. I've got about a 45-minute commute. I listen to a podcast usually, and then I'll listen to some of this book. Now, go ahead, head over to Audible, and check it out. And if you go to audibletrial.com, Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks, again, that's audibletrial.com, Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks, you'll be able to get your free audiobook and your free 30-day trial. Now, back to the show. So in his miniseries, we see Wild Dog come up against some homegrown militia calling themselves the Committee for Social Change. Now, sounds like a little civics group sitting around the table speaking of how we can better the community. No, these are terrorists. These are actual terrorists, gun-toting terrorists. And when he first busts in to stop these terrorists, there's a reporter on the scene, and that reporter actually gives Jack his name, Wild Dog, due to his over-the-top attack and just the ferocity of his attack. And I'm sure the crazy-looking red dog on his jersey didn't hurt. So Wild Dog fights for the little guy, taking on other homegrown terrorist groups and other, smaller things. He isn't going to go fighting Galactus or, teaming up with, these huge bad guys. He fights homegrown terrorists, homegrown bad guys, and he shows no mercy, shooting first, and, well, he doesn't really ask questions. He just shoots. Wild Dog pops up here and there, showing up in Infinite Crisis alongside Vigilante and the Crimson Avenger. And he even shows up in an alternate reality that Booster Gold created. There was a great series of Booster Gold was, with a time ship, and he was going around, and this is a really fun episode, or issue. I always will say episode when I'm talking about comics. And, after that, we really don't see, like I'd mentioned earlier at the top of the show, we don't see him for quite a while. So that brings us to the DC Rebirth, and where has Wild Dog been showing up? Well, there's one that's an odd little area that he's in. Now, in Green Arrow 18, there is a group of right-wing wackos that show up to attack protesters at an oil pipeline and say they are a libertarian militia, quote, inspired by some nut in the Quad Cities. So that is definitely a reference to Wild Dog, which is sad because Wild Dog isn't about attacking innocent people or fighting protesters. So I can only guess that these are some wackos who, think they know what Wild Dog fights for and are just using his name, which is, like I said, pretty sad. Now, where you can see the real Wild Dog in DC's new Rebirth is actually in their new Young Animals imprint, which is amazing. Every single title. We're going to be talking more and more about them. We're going to be talking about Bug, the Adventures of the Forager, and actually I've got another interview with Mike Allred. We're going to be talking about all the characters in that series. I'm actually working on a fairly lengthy Doom Patrol episode because that's one of my favorite groups. But back to the episode we're talking about now, which is Wild Dog. So, Young Animals. Young Animals is the new imprint, which is being spearheaded by Gerard Way and features some really cute, cool, and obscure characters that include Shade the Changing Girl. They changed it to the Changing Girl. Doom Patrol, and Cave Carson. And it's in that last title, Cave Carson, where Wild Dog pops back up, giving Cave Carson a hand during his latest voyage to the center of the Earth. And this is classic Wild Dog. Fun uniforms with guns blazing. Really, it's so well written. It's crazy. And it's really neat to see the character being used in such an innovative and well-written way, and just an amazing comic. Now, Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye, like I've mentioned, is one of my favorite Young Animal titles. Now, the art is amazing with Michael Oeming just killing it. And the colors by Nick, I'm going to probably say this wrong, Filardi, just really fit the style. And of course, it's written by John Rivera and Gerard Way. I mean, it's just a great book. I mean, I really dig this book. I mean, well, no pun intended. Well, okay, a little bit of a pun intended. Now, I almost explained the pun, but I guess if you don't know what Cave Carson's about, you might not get that pun. Well, check out Cave Carson. And if having Wild Dog in a cool new title wasn't enough, he's actually now a member, and I'm way behind an Arrow, but he's actually a new member of Team Arrow on the hit CW show. Now, they have changed his origin quite a bit, and, they've had to change, right? They're pretty much down to his alter ego. Wild Dog in Arrow, his name is Rene Ramirez, and he actually grew up in Star City. Now, this Wild Dog also joined the military and became a Navy SEAL, but he was dishonorably discharged after trying to beat information out of an informant. So, big difference there. Rene has also suffered a big loss in his journey to become Wild Dog, but again, it was a very different loss than Jack had, in that Rene loses his daughter to the foster system after she is removed from his custody, after just a mess with drugs. And, his wife Laura was in the drugs and owed the dealer money. And when the dealer showed up at their place, Rene was able to trick the dealer, but a gun battle ensued and Rene was actually killed. And that is why Zoe, his daughter, was put in foster care. So Rene dons the camo and the jersey with the crazy red dog on it and begins to fight crime to sort of, fight the drug trade and get the streets clean. And eventually he's actually brought over to Team Arrow. So the origin of Wild Dog is simple, but the character, again, they didn't do a whole lot with him. It was a pretty one-dimensional character back in the day. But if you liked him back then, look at Cave Carson. It's the same character, but it's just incredibly well written. It's funny. It's witty. He's, same shoot 'em up kind of guy. And of course, if you want to see him on the small screen, unless you've got a really big TV, it could be the big screen, check out the CW's Arrow for the new version of Wild Dog. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening to this week's episode. Again, this was a really fun one. I enjoy doing research on characters that I remember reading about in the 80s and digging through my collection to find the original comics. And I had these, so I was able to look through and read them and sort of, put the facts together. It was really fun to see some of the old art and the old writing styles. And again, I want to thank you. Our theme music was by Broke for Free, and you can find out about other music used in the show over at the site, heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com. And head over there and take a look at the episodes page. There'll be a post for this podcast where I go ahead and I put all of the photos from sort of the origin stories and some other images I find and, little pieces from the show just to sort of give you guys an idea. So always head over to the site, www.heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com. And remember, if you get a second, head over to iTunes and leave a review. Again, I want to thank you guys a lot. Talk to you again next week. Take care.